In this episode of Pop Culture Weekly, Fandango editor Erik Davis returns, and we talk all about our Oscar predictions for the 2024 Academy Awards. Let's go!
Welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon from iHeartRadio. Your pop culture news, views, reviews, and celebrity interviews on all the movies, TV, music, and pop culture you crave weekly. Here's Kyle McMahon.
Hello and welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon. I, of course, am Kyle McMahon, and I am so happy that you're here to hang out with me for this episode of Pop Culture Weekly. It is awards season, and that's always capped off with the Academy Awards, which, you know, the Oscars. So the 2024 Oscars are this Sunday, depending on when you're listening, and we have some predictions. There's some great films up. I actually think this is one of the best Oscar award nominee lineup in quite some time. So just some interesting facts for you about the Academy Awards. Meryl Streep is the most nominated performer in Academy history with 21 nominations. Jack Nicholson is the most nominated male performer in Academy Award history with 12 nominations. Katharine Hepburn has the most Oscar wins for a performer with 4, and Daniel Day-Lewis is the only person to have 3 Best Oscar winners. Of course, last year was the slap heard around the world when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock on the face, which is, you know, I won't even get into that ridiculous, insane thing. But also, in positive news, Michelle Yeoh was named Best Actress for her role in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which I loved. And she became the first woman of Asian descent to win Best Actress. So let's hope for some more firsts this year. My buddy Erik Davis from Fandango is back, and him and I are going to just dive right into our Oscar nominations for the 2024 Academy Awards. Let's go. Here's Erik Davis. All right. First of all, welcome back to Pop Culture Weekly on iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for joining me. Erik Davis, once again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I always love talking shop with you. So what's going on in your world these days? I know we're in the heat of award season, particularly the Oscars.
Yeah, you know, I would say there's 2 big things happening. You have the biggest award show of the year for the entertainment industry, which is the Academy Awards. And then you have, I think, the first really big movie of the year, first blockbuster of the year, Dune Part 2, is opening in theaters, you know, a few days before the Oscars. So really big moments, like the biggest films from last year are being, you know, acknowledged and awarded. And then, like, you know, here comes the first really big year, big movie of the year with Dune Part 2, which I'll be honest with you, having seen it, it's going to be another film we're talking about come this time next year, right, at next year's Oscars, because there's a number of categories this one could be nominated for.
Yeah, I am so excited to see it. I missed the screening. I was like double booked, and I was like really trying to finagle it, and I couldn't. And so now I just have to wait, and that's fine. But all my friends are talking, you know, that have seen the screenings, are talking about it, and I'm like, please stop, but please also keep going, you know?
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, it's great to get, like, I do feel like this is an all-timer of a sequel for a sci-fi franchise. You know, I'm a big fan of the Part 2. I think the Part 2 you can really have fun with because Part 1 sets everything up. Part 3 maybe ends everything. But that Part 2 is where you can really take some swings and really have some fun. And this Part 2 is just epic. And so, like, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it yet or you haven't got your ticket yet, I mean, this is one that put it on the schedule.
I can't wait. And it's one of those I feel like you have to see it on the big screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the biggest screen. Like, I honestly treat this the way you treated Oppenheimer. If you were like, I have to go see this in IMAX or IMAX 70 millimeter because Christopher Nolan's telling me I got to watch it that way. Like, this is the same situation. I think Denis Villeneuve shot it in IMAX, same IMAX 70 millimeter as an option in some theaters. So see it big, see it loud. I personally didn't get to see it in IMAX. My screening was not in IMAX. It was in Dolby. So the sound was amazing. But I am going to go back and go see this in IMAX because it's just, the craftsmanship is just on another level.
Awesome. I can't wait. And what's going on in the Fandango world?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting ready for Dune Part 2, which is exciting, and really getting ready for a long stretch of, here come the big movies. We have after Dune Part 2, there's a new Ghostbusters movie. There's a Godzilla vs. Kong movie. The Fall Guy opens up May, and then we're into a summer season that's got, stacked with, I think, a bunch of franchises that people love: Despicable Me, Inside Out 2, Bad Boys 4, a lot of really good stuff. So we're getting ready for all of those movies. Ghostbusters tickets actually just went on sale on Fandango. So if you're looking to take the family out to that one, I heard it's scary. I heard it's like a scary.
I cannot wait for that.
That's on sale now. And then over at Vudu, a bunch of those movies that have come out earlier this year have just been released. So you can, check out some of those movies like Beekeeper and several others that are brand new to the platform.
So today we are talking about, and I'm just looking at my notes here, Oscar nominations, predictions for 2024. What do you think the big thing will be? Are we going to see a big take home this year? Somebody's going to sweep, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say the top story is Oppenheimer. It's the top story. It's been winning all of those Best Picture-esque awards at every award show. So that really is, in terms of a front runner, you can't get any more of a front runner than Oppenheimer is right now. And so, yes, without a doubt, predicted to win Best Director and Best Picture. Christopher Nolan would take home his first ever Oscar.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah.
Crazy to me if he wins for Oppenheimer. And so, but I think the larger story for Oppenheimer, it could either tie or break the record for the most amount of Oscars ever won during a ceremony. So for those counting at home, that number is 11. It is held by Ben-Hur, Titanic is up there, and the last Lord of the Rings movie, Return of the King, all won 11 awards. So Oppenheimer nominated for 13. So we'll see, but we could have another big record holder in its wins this year.
I think I loved Oppenheimer so much, and like you said, it's insane that he has never won. It like literally insane, and this has got, in my opinion, this has got to be the movie that he takes it home. It's got to be.
Yeah, this will be the movie, and it's a great movie, and it's I think it's the most accomplished film, and I think Christopher Nolan was already in this sort of stratosphere of directors, very much so for pushing the boundaries of what the cinematic experience could be. He was really that first pioneer of working with IMAX cameras and, really educating audiences on why I have to go to see this in IMAX and what does that mean to the experience. And so to see him finally now recognized with this big win at the Oscars, I think is now going to kind of take him to that next level, that legendary level, that level that maybe like Martin Scorsese, who is opposite him in that director category. I think that level is like where Scorsese, where Spielberg is. I think it's time to start elevating Christopher Nolan, and honestly, right behind him is going to be Denis Villeneuve.
Okay. So just looking at categories here, I'm just kind of randomly selecting some of the best animated feature film. We have The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. For me personally, I love the Spider-Man Across films, and I believe that won for the first one, right?
Yeah, it won the Oscar. The first Into the Spider-Verse won the Oscar for that. And this is an interesting category and this is a few different categories where, a lot of Oscar experts will look at who's winning the other award shows. The Academy Awards is not the only award show. There's like a million award shows. And so, this is one of those categories where Across the Spider-Verse has won a bunch of awards, and then The Boy and the Heron has won a bunch of awards. And so which of those two films is going to win it? There's some people that say, Into the Spider-Verse won, for its first film, and this is a second installment. And so maybe we'll award the next installment, which will cap off the trilogy. But then there are others that, you can't deny just how incredible, the largest team of animators ever assembled made this movie. And watching it is just, such a crazy, wild, visceral experience.
Yeah.
How do you not give it the Oscar? So at this moment in time, I think I'm going to go with Across the Spider-Verse winning.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do worry, as people like us do. Other people are like, why would you be worried about that? But I do kind of worry that because it's a sequel and knowing that there's a third film, are they going to skip over this? And, kind of a Lord of the Rings thing, although Fellowship didn't, really light up awards. But that is in the back of my mind. Like, are they going to go with The Boy and the Heron instead, knowing that there's a third film coming or whatever? But just an interesting thing for me.
Yeah, and that's always the conversation. And honestly, we're going to be back here next year talking about Dune Part 2, because I do see it being nominated for Best Picture, and we're going to be saying it's the Part 2. So
right.
Does that mean that it should be recognized? Should we wait for Dune Messiah, which is likely to be the third film, and they'll recognize the entire franchise at that point? So we'll see. But then again, Miyazaki, before The Boy and the Heron came out, there was a lot of news that this was going to be his last film, that he was going to retire after this film. And then he came out and said, no, I'm not retiring. So I almost want to say, if he stayed with that line, then Boy and the Heron is that front runner, because this would be his last film. They would honor him for retiring on his last film. But now, because that news is out there that it might not be his last film, I think it's a little bit more of a toss-up in terms of which film wins that category.
Okay. Best Original Song, which The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, I'm Just Ken from Barbie, It Never Went Away, American Symphony, A Song for My People, Killers of the Flower Moon, and What Was I Made For from Barbie. Also, some interesting news that just popped up is, I believe it's Variety, is reporting that Ryan Gosling will be performing I'm Just Ken at the ceremony, which is interesting. What do you think for this? Are the two Barbies going to kind of eliminate themselves? What are you thinking?
I mean, the first thing that I'm thinking is that I'm kind of bummed that Jack Black wasn't also nominated for Peaches from Mario Brothers, because to see the two of them, maybe even in a back-to-back performances of those two songs, I think would have been the reason to tune into the Oscars. But I think it's great that he's performing the song. I think it makes sense that he does. And I think it's a toss. I think less so Barbie, and Barbie kind of eliminating each other. I think it's Barbie versus Barbie. I think it's either I'm Just Ken or What Was I Made For. Both songs, again, have won at various different award shows. So I do think it's those two films against each other. If I were to pick one right now, I would go with the Billie Eilish jam.
Okay.
What Was I Made For? I also, too, when you think about original song, aren't one of these songs really popping off on the radio?
Yeah.
Like, are you just listening to it on repeat when you're driving in your car? That always matters. That makes, because people, it's like, that's the most recognizable to me. I love that song. I listen to it all the time anyway. So that's the song I'm going to vote for. So, What Was I Made For? I'm still hearing it in my car when I'm driving. So, I think that one's going to win.
Okay. I thought, this one I thought was interesting. Best costume design, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things, which I feel like Poor Things did not get its flowers. I think it is such a creative film that is just, I feel like it just should have been bigger than what it is. What do you think about, all of those are very interesting, and on the spot, in my opinion, in regards to costume. What are you thinking based on past history and looking at these films now?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think if Oppenheimer is not in this show, I think Poor Things is a front runner in a lot of categories. Poor Things and The Holdovers, I think, are dominating the Oscars if Oppenheimer does not exist. But I think Poor Things takes costume design. I think it's Poor Things versus Barbie. Again, another category where, both films have won at different award shows in this costume category. The costumes of Barbie really pop for me. But I do think, I agree that there's a lot of industry love for Poor Things. There's a lot of people that were turned off by that film because it goes to some wild places. But there are a lot of people that love that film and think it's brilliant, including myself. I think that I had such a great time watching that film. So I do think that we're going to see Poor Things pop up in a lot of these below the line categories. I think production design also it could show up there. And then, the big one will be, could Emma Stone, beat Lily Gladstone at Best Actress? That's another category that a lot of eyes are on. For costumes, though, I'm going to go Poor Things.
Okay. That is my choice as well. I mean, it's more kind of a personal choice just because I love that film so much. And I just, like I said, I've talked to friends, like kind of non-industry friends about it, and they're like, what? And I'm like, Poor Things, it's so good, and blah, blah. And, I just feel like it should have been so much bigger than it was. And I hope that it gets its flowers, for the Oscar ceremony.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it will. I think that director, Yorgos Lanthimos, his films have a specific kind of tone to them.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and it's the kind of tone that takes some chances. And so you're going to have a lot of people that are all in on his films. Like, I'm one of those people. I love his dry, warped sense of humor. I'm all in on everything he does. But then there's a lot of people that are just turned off by it because it's not as accessible as Barbie, or as something that like The Holdovers.
Yeah.
It's not an accessible general consumer entertainment. It's a little bit left.
Right.
And so, I think it takes some chances. But if you're all in on that, then you're all in on everything that he does.
Yeah, he is amazing and a visionary for me. He's like a more artsy, not that Tim Burton isn't artsy, but like the art student, evil, stepbrother of Tim Burton. You know what I mean? He's got like this vision, and it's I just love him, and I love Poor Things.
That's a great comp. He's like an artsier Tim Burton.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Best Actress in a Supporting Role: Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. This is an interesting category for me because I think it's so many ways that they could go. Color Purple for me was very also. I feel like the awards love overall wasn't huge, and I thought it would be. I thought it was such a good film. I thought it did an amazing job of marrying the book and the movie and the musical all in a kind of its own new thing. And, we'll see what happens. But what are you thinking for Best Supporting Actress?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you on The Color Purple. I think if there's, I think there's maybe a couple of films that could have shown up bigger at this award show. I think The Color Purple is one of them. I think Saltburn is one of them. I think Ben Affleck's Air, which I love. I think that's one of them too. But I think Danielle Brooks is fantastic in it. But multiple people from that cast could have been nominated.
Yeah.
I think the film should have been nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion because I agree with you. It does a really great job of marrying all three of those things into one new experience for a new generation. That being said, this is one of those categories where I think you do have to look at all of these previous award shows, and Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers has won literally every single supporting actress award. So if she does not win in this category, it's the shock of the night, without a doubt. It's the upset of the night. But I think that, The Holdovers is one of my favorite films of the year.
Yeah.
I think I don't know how many categories it's going to be awarded in. I think this category is a lock for that film getting kind of its recognition, and I think Divine Joy Randolph takes it.
Okay. Best Actor in a Supporting Role: Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, which I loved. Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, De Niro. Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling in Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. So I thought this for me is another really hard one because they're all such strong performances.
Yeah, this is a fun category. I mean, they're all like, all of these guys are just awesome actors. And all of them can do, comedy. They can do drama. Like, they're all so versatile. All of these performances are really great. I love Ryan Gosling because, I think for the longest time, a lot of people saw Ryan Gosling as like a dramatic actor or like an action movie actor. But I was always like, look, if you saw The Nice Guys, you realize that Gosling is such a great comedic actor. And I think like to see him recognized on this stage for a comedic performance, I love, because I don't think anybody really ever saw this in Gosling. I think he's brilliant. That being said, I don't think he's going to win. Downey Jr. has been winning this category at several award shows. I think he's due. He hasn't won the Oscar yet.
He's never won an Oscar.
No, he's been nominated a couple of times. He hasn't won yet. So I do think that this is Downey Jr.'s time. As much as I think it's Downey Jr., I personally wish it was Sterling K. Brown. I think Sterling in American Fiction is out of bounds. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that film, like The Holdovers, deserves some greater recognition at the Academy Awards, but because of the Oppenheimers and the Poor Things, like I don't know how much love it's going to get. I do think it'll win adapted screenplay for Cord Jefferson. This is his first film, but I personally would love to see Sterling win this category. I do think it's going to go to Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, which I'm happy about too.
Yeah.
Because, after a million Marvel movies, it's great to get like a rich, like juicy Robert Downey Jr. performance.
Absolutely.
You haven't gotten one of those in a while. So I think he's great in Oppenheimer and deserves it.
And, for me, this is another category where no matter who wins, I feel like we win. You know what I mean? Because it's just such a rich category this year. With so many amazing performances that it's like, I'd be happy with any of them, Exactly.
Yeah. De Niro too. I thought De Niro is great in Killers of the Flower Moon. And, he's a guy who's got out, late in his career. I think he does do a lot of movies where people are like, I don't know, he's just kind of writing that performance in. But whenever he shows up in a Scorsese film, you can tell like he shows up to like bring everything he's got. And I think he's great in Killers of the Flower Moon. I think Leo is great in that film too. I think Leo could have been nominated as well. I think it's one of his more versatile performances. So I think that was kind of a surprise to not see him
definitely
in that acting category.
Definitely. All right, we're going to take a break for just a moment to pay the bills. I love you, and I love that you support us and me and this show and everything I do, and I hope to continue to keep it coming for you forever and make it better and bigger than ever every single time. But to do that, we have to pay the bills. So hang out here for about 60 seconds, and we'll be right back to dive in. All right, we are back. Thank you for hanging out with us and letting us pay the bills. Let's get back into my conversation with Fandango editor Erik Davis on the Oscar nominations and our predictions for the 2024 Academy Awards. Best Actress in a Leading Role, Annette Bening for Nyad. How do you pronounce that? Nyad. Okay, so I was saying it right. Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon. Sandra Huller for Anatomy of a Fall. Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. I am again partial to Poor Things, but Lily Gladstone was incredible, and I think you had mentioned she's been kind of sweeping, right?
Well, not necessarily. Like
okay.
Emma Stone has won some of this award as well. Emma won the BAFTA, and I think a lot of people then shifted to Emma Stone taking home the Oscar, and then Lily Gladstone won at the SAG Awards, and so now everybody's shifting back to Lily Gladstone. But you know that's fun. Like this, I think is the category of the night. I think Lily Gladstone versus Emma Stone is one of the top stories. Both women deserve this.
Yeah.
I think they both have very different performances. Emma Stone, very physical, very out there, takes a lot of risks in that role. Lily Gladstone, much quieter. So much of her performance is in her face, is in her gestures, is in the way she looks at the situation. And so just two completely different performances, both excellent, both, I think, neck and neck for who wins this one. I am in the Lily Gladstone camp right now.
Okay.
Having shifted back over from the Emma Stone camp. I think Lily Gladstone wins. If she does win, she'll be the first Native American woman ever to win this Oscar for Best Actress. So history is on the line, and I think Lily takes it. And you know what? I hope Lily takes it, because Emma Stone, great actress. She's good. She's going to have a career. She's going to be in a bunch of big films coming out. She's good.
Yeah.
And she'll be back here at some point. Lily Gladstone is an actress that I think is on the up and up. A lot of people, she's not a household name like Emma Stone. And, winning an award like this is so meaningful. It's so impactful for an actress like Lily Gladstone. And so I hope it goes to Lily, because I think it'll really kind of then catapult her to the next level of her career and put her in a bunch more movies that make her a household name.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, like you said, should she win, she would be the first Native American woman to win this. Now I'm like, wow, history really is on the line. So now you have me switching over. I'm like, but that'll be a great one to watch.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Best actor in a leading role, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdover, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. This is another one, in my opinion, that is hard to pick for me. I mean, they all did such great performances. They're all such great films. What are you thinking?
I agree. I think they're all great films. Cillian Murphy has been winning this for Oppenheimer. He is, I would say he's due. Great actor.
Yeah. Never
really recognized in this fashion. This is his first ever Oscar nomination. So I think this is an actor who is due. Then again, Giamatti I'm such a fan of The Holdovers.
It is a great
so
film.
Every time I talk about that film, I just smile. I feel like it's going to be a film that I watch every holiday season, because it just gives you those comfortable vibes.
Yeah.
Giamatti's won. He's won this award at some of these award shows. So, I don't necessarily think it's as close of a toss-up as it is between Lily and Emma for Best Actress. But I do think there is a lot of people that are looking at this as like a Cillian versus Giamatti. And so I think Murphy's going to win it ultimately. But I do think it's a bit of a race. But everybody in that category is awesome. It's great to see Coleman Domingo, who's an actor who in the last few years has really sort of stepped out, and everything he's doing is memorable. Every performance he turns in is memorable. He reminds me of Sterling K. Brown in the way of he's an actor that just, you can tell when he's performing, he gives 120%. He gives everything he has to that character that he's playing. Both of those guys kind of remind me of each other in that way. And so, if I was going to say, hey, Erik, you get to pick who gets it, I'd give it to Coleman, honestly. But I do think Cillian's going to win.
Okay. Best Director, Anatomy of a Fall, Justine Triet, Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos, Poor Things. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest, which was, wow, that was a film it was a great film, but oh my God, I needed therapy after that. More therapy than I normally get. Great film. Who do you think is, we kind of talked about this before, you think this is Nolan's year?
I think Christopher Nolan wins this. I think he wins his first Oscar in this category, without a doubt. Again, similar to Divine Joy Randolph, if Christopher Nolan does not win in this category, you're looking at a pretty big upset.
Yeah.
And honestly, if he doesn't win, I think it goes to that guy, Jonathan Glazer, just because I think there's so many people, so many directors, so many industry folks who are so taken by the way that film was shot and the sound of it. And so I do think the Zone of Interest is going to pick up, a couple of Oscars, probably in the below the line categories. But, Oppenheimer, Nolan, this is his year. He deserves to win it.
Yeah.
He took a film about, a nuclear physicist and made it one of the highest grossing movies of the year, one of the most entertaining films of the year. How do you not give this guy the Oscar for just achieving that?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I love him. I love the film. And I really am hoping that it wins. Best Picture, American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Are you expecting any upsets this year? What are your thoughts on this list?
Not expecting any upsets as we head into it. I do think, like I said at the top of this, we haven't had a front runner like Oppenheimer. Like Oppenheimer is the front runner of all front runners right now. It has been winning this award at every award show. If it does not win Best Picture, it's a huge surprise. But I also think, like, when you look at this list of Best Picture nominees, it's one of the best I think that we've had in years. Every one of these films is really great. You have giant box office hits on this. You have smaller films that really resonated and meant a lot to people. There isn't a person that I talk who had, a lot of these have been big airplane movies. So a lot of people are discovering, like, Past Lives is being discovered on a lot of airplanes right now. And everybody I talk to is like, I just watched Past Lives on an airplane. I was crying my eyes out. But films like Past Lives, I think, really kind of resonate with a lot of people. But I do think Oppenheimer ultimately takes it. But it's an interesting category. I think this is the first year that we've had two films not in the English language nominated, with Anatomy of the Fall and The Zone of Interest. If one of those does win, it will be the first time since Parasite. It'll be only the second film in non-English language that has won Best Picture. So there is some history there with The Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall, both great films. American Fiction, we've talked about. Another thing I love about this category, first-timers. Celine Song, who directed Past Lives. Cord Jefferson, who directed American Fiction. This is their first film. Imagine your first film being nominated for Best Picture. I feel like that's it. I'm good. Done. I'm out. I've done it. So the cool story that I think Cord is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay. I hope he does. I think it's a great screenplay for American Fiction. But at the end of the day, I think this is Oppenheimer's one to lose.
Any surprises in general that you think we may see for the Academy Awards this year?
I think we could see some surprises. I think if we do, the bigger surprises would be Holdovers and Poor Things. Do they show up and win categories that maybe they weren't expected to win? Can Paul Giamatti win best actor? Will Emma Stone win? Will the film win in some of these below the line categories where it's not necessarily expected to win? I don't necessarily see this as a huge shocker of a year, and I say that because I'm looking at the other award shows and what's winning. And especially if you look at something like SAG, a lot of these categories are voted by the group. The cinematographers all vote for the cinematographers, the actors all vote for the actors, and then everybody votes for Best Picture. So when you look at something like the Screen Actors Guild Awards, where Cillian Murphy and Lily Gladstone win, you're saying, okay, now if all the actors are voting for them, then when the actors vote for the Oscars, they're likely to win. So in looking at the other award shows, we haven't seen any really big, shocking upsets. I think the biggest upsets have been where Emma Stone and Paul Giamatti have actually come through and won those categories. So I would say if there is a big upset, look for it to come from Poor Things, The Holdovers, American Fiction, all big audience-friendly movies. But I think I would hope that the predictions I've just given you will likely stay.
I think you're right. I'm on your team Erik there. And you're definitely one that knows what the heck he's talking about. So so I'm looking forward to the ceremony. What else are you going into, as you said, 2024 will most likely be for 2020 in 2025, talking about Dune 2. Any other things that you see this year that you're thinking will be a Oscar lock for a nomination?
There's nothing that I've seen yet other than Dune 2 that I feel like that's a film that we're going to be talking about later this year, without a doubt. I think once we get later in the year, Ridley Scott has a sequel to Gladiator coming out in November. The first Gladiator won Best Picture back in 2000. So, immediately, when you have a sequel to a Best Picture winner, you have to kind of say, okay, Ridley did not show up as much in award season with Napoleon. I thought the craftsmanship on that film was fantastic. So you do see it a little bit here, but I think it could have had a better showing at the Oscars. So, Ridley Scott's one of those, he's another great director. He really makes these great movies. So I'm looking at Gladiator 2 as being one. Paul Thomas Anderson is making a film right now. I'm not sure if it's going to come out later this year, but it's got like Leonardo DiCaprio on it and Tiana Taylor. And I'm a big PTA fan. I love Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
So, let's see when that film comes out, if that becomes something in the conversation. And, and then from there, we're going to have to see, is there a Barbenheimer this year? Are there, Dune Part 2? Yes. The movie's going to do well at the box office. It's going to be nominated next year. But are there other big blockbuster type movies that pop with audiences, that pop with voters? That's something I'm looking at. And I'm curious to see if any of these big films really resonate with people. But, right now I would say, if you're looking at your 2025 Best Picture list, scratching Dune Part 2, and then let's see how it fills out.
Fandango, as always, is covering all of award season and films all year, but especially there's a lot of content and coverage with the Academy Awards, with the Oscars, right?
Yep, we'll be covering the Oscars at Fandango, also our sister site, Rotten Tomatoes. We have ballots that you can print out if you're going to have fun at home with your friends and
drinking games,
and have some drinking games with them. So we have a printable ballot that you can get on either Rotten Tomatoes or Fandango. Rotten Tomatoes was at the Oscars luncheon recently, so there's a bunch of interviews that they have on their channels for that. I would say, we have this big ticket interview series that I'm very proud of. And we did the first big cast interviews for Barbie and for Oppenheimer. They're two of our most watched interviews of the year. So I would say going into the Oscars, if you haven't checked out those conversations, they're lengthy. Our Oppenheimer conversation's like 30 minutes long.
That's
People
awesome.
have been loving it. Really great conversation. So I would say go over to our channels, maybe watch some of those conversations. All of these films, many of the films that are nominated are also available on Vudu right now. And I know we'll probably have most of them on sale, and there's Oscar sales. And so definitely if you need to catch up at home, go over to Vudu and you'll find the awards collection, and you'll have everything that's at least available at home right now. We will have over there on Vudu.
Awesome. And where can we find you and follow all your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, at Erik with a K Davis on the Twitter or the X, and this is Erik Davis on some other platforms. But just type in Erik Davis Fandango and you'll find me somewhere.
Awesome.
Chirping about movies.
Are you on Letterboxd?
I'm technically on Letterboxd, but I'm not as active on Letterboxd. And I'm currently debating, when do I want to get more active? Because I see so many movies, but then I also see so many movies very far in advance that when they finally come out, and I can finally write my Letterboxd review, I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
So my game is not where it should be, but maybe this year I step it up a little bit.
I've gotten in the last few months, I've really tried to step up my Letterboxd game. And I've been running into that problem where, I just saw a film yesterday in New York that doesn't come out for a couple weeks, and there's the social embargo or whatever, and I'm like, crap. So I'm like, do I write it in my notes and then go back and copy and paste it now or whatever? But the community is so awesome there, and so I really am trying to actively get more involved in it because it's film lovers like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's always fun. And I think, honestly, if I did kind of go all in on a Letterboxd, I might do it under a pseudonym.
Okay.
So if there may be, something there, it may not be Mr. Erik Davis.
Okay.
There, but
so Schmerich Schmavis is definitely not you on Letterboxd.
It's definitely not Schmerich. No, that's not me. But we'll see.
Thank you, Erik, as always. Fandango.com and Vudu as well, and Rotten Tomatoes. I appreciate you hanging out with me and talking about the Oscar nominations. Please come back again, as always.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Anytime. Enjoy the Oscars.
Thank you. You too. Erik Davis. It's always a pleasure to have Erik on. He's just an encyclopedia of knowledge. We have a lot of the same tastes, and I love that, obviously. Let me know what your tastes are. Who do you think is going to win at the 2024 Academy Awards? Who are you rooting for? What do you think are the upsets? What are you expecting? Hit me up on social. Let me know, or email me. All the links are in the show notes on this episode or the websites, popcultureweekly.com. And I will see you next time with some very interesting guests. Get it? Very interesting guests. Very interesting. All right. I love you. See you next week. We are.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Weekly. Hear all the latest at popcultureweekly.com.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. I'll slap you, Chris Rock. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. I'll slap you on the face. Keep my wife's name out your mouth. Me.